There you are, John. I didn't see you.
Oh, geez. Looks like twin brother.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. Well, we want to talk a little bit about the history. And what I want to talk about a little bit about Bill, Dr. Bill. And I guess first, thank you all for being with us, and we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about Aroga, about the products. But a little bit of history, I think, can be really helpful. History is always helpful. It should be. I started with Bill over 30 years ago, and actually did some stuff with him before. And then in '89, he asked me to come to the company, and he was going to talk to me about some stuff. I didn't know what he wanted me to talk about, but he was going to talk about some stuff. So we met with him, and he started talking about aloe vera. And I remember, and I said, Bill, aloe doesn't work. Because all I'd ever read was that aloe really doesn't work. All the studies, aloe really doesn't work back in those days. Well, there's a reason for it. They kind of talked about it because it degrades over time pretty quickly. But anyway, I don't think he heard me. So anyway, he started showing me all this science about ace mannan and all this new stuff. And he spent about an hour showing me all this research. And then he asked me if I wanted to join his company and work in research and development. And I didn't have any idea he was going there. And I said, Bill, I've never done any research before, but he said, I'll teach you. So, okay, I'm in, because that was fascinating. The science already at that time was fascinating. So he was already working, he already had a wound dressing. The first marketed hydrogel wound dressing in the world. There are about 700 or 800 hydrogel wound dressings in the world today. His was the first one that was widely marketed. There were some that have been developed in labs and all that, but Carrington dermal wound gel was the first one. And so he again, Bill's always developing the first of its kind in the world. But he also was wanting to develop ace mannan, that complex carbohydrate that's the ingredient in aloe that we love aloe for, that he identified, that stimulates the healing process and all that. He wanted to develop it as a drug because he wanted, we're just hearing too many things. He had a product called Aloe. It was a beverage, it was a drink, and it was an aloe drink. It had the stuff from the clear gel in it, and it tasted horrible. And I think somebody's already said, if it doesn't taste bad, it's not aloe. If it tastes like water, it's water, okay? If it's aloe, it's not going to taste very good. Well, this didn't taste very good. But we're hearing and seeing so many, and I mean, some fascinating things with people with all kinds of things, cancers and autoimmune diseases and all kinds of things. So back in those days, you had to get it approved as a drug, back then. So we had to go through the new drug process, new drug application. And so we've heard from AIDS patients. They were doing studies in AIDS-related complex. I don't even think they talked about ARC, but ARC back then was a big thing. They were HIV positive, but they didn't have AIDS-defining diseases. And in Europe, they were seeing with Aloe, they were seeing some really fascinating things. They're seeing people, their CD4 start going back up, which had never happened. With the drugs that they were using at that time, AZT, the CD4s would go just drop like a rock. The lymphocytes that are important, and then the patient would die. As it turned out, they knew that the patient was going to die anyway. The AZT that they were using at that time, the makers of AZT said it was so potent that you could take a healthy human being, and in 2 years they would kill that person because it destroyed their bone marrow. So they're giving AIDS patients AZT that's going to kill them anyway. So like the virus wasn't enough, So anyway, there were 1 or 2 people that seroconverted. They were HIV negative. That had never happened in the history of the world. They took his product. They took Aloe. That's all they did. They didn't take AZT. So we were trying to get it approved as a drug. We were wanting to get into the clinical. We did. We went through the animal studies, all the ace mannan has been through all the toxicity studies known to mankind. No toxicity. There was none. And that was part of the problem that we had with the FDA, because drugs have toxicity. You can give enough drugs, you're going to get some toxicity somewhere. There wasn't any. So we had problems even like that. But anyway, we finally got clinical studies in AIDS patients. We were doing studies on ulcerative colitis and with the pure ACE manner. And we were seeing some really neat things. There's a lot of politics. I learned about the politics in medicine and in drug development. And we were a tiny little company. We were a little minnow in a big old ocean of sharks. And you know, you can get eaten up like that, which happened to us. But we saw some really fascinating results that had never been seen before. So it just, we were kind of beating our heads against the wall. Then 1994 came and DSHEA came, the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act. And so suddenly foods became more important, dietary supplements and all that. So Bill finally said, you know, really, ACE man, it's carbohydrate, it's really not a drug. You know, it's a food. So we went in that direction, okay? Because now we had that door open up, but we didn't have to do it as a drug. So we had the pure drug, the pure molecule, ACE man, and saw some fascinating things. But I remember asking Bill, because I thought about it. I said, Bill, do you get the feeling, thinking back on it, that people who took the Aloe that had everything in the clear gel in it, the beverage that he did, overall, we saw better results than we did with the pure ACE man? And he said, yep, he already thought about it. By the time I thought about it, he already figured it out. So that was interesting because we just always saw better results with the Aloe, with the beverage, but not the pure drug. Well, that fits into a lot of what we talked about. You've heard already about food. So anyway, Bill, we did this. Bill developed some great wound care products, and wound care was always important. So we developed wound care products for the mouth. That's one of the reasons he wanted to hire me, because I was a dentist. He thought it'd be a good idea to have somebody who knew something about the mouth, because MD doesn't know squat about the mouth. As Shayne will tell you, they don't want to know about the mouth. And I can tell you, after working with MDs for 30 years, they don't know anything about the mouth. And so he thought it'd be a good idea just to have somebody. So that was really one of the reasons he hired me. It took years and years to finally get to that, because he had me working on AIDS and ulcerative colitis and everything else. But we ended up starting our own company, Bill did, and we developed some products that are on the market right now, got them through FDA, and they're hydrogel wound dressings, and they're for the mouth. 100% food ingredients. It's like our products. It's 100% plant-based food ingredient. They give the best pain relief. There's not a narcotic in the cosmos that can compete with our product as far as pain relief. They extract a tooth, they do surgery. It causes pain relief without numbing the mouth like an anesthetic does. And we also made that was a gel in a syringe, so the patient could take it home and squirt it in the extraction site. When it's food, so it's swallowed eventually. After a few hours, it goes away. The patient knows it's gone because the pain comes back. Well, they just put some more in. It's food, and it's teeny tiny amount of food, so there's no toxicity, as opposed to giving them even an over-the-counter medication. So they use, and the best pain relief. It's better than any of the antimicrobials that we've ever seen as far as controlling those. And instead of inhibiting healing, it stimulates the healing process. Everything else we do in medicine and dentistry and in wounds, when we treat wounds, we slow the healing process down because we're using chemicals that are so toxic to the cells of wound healing, whether it's peroxide or chlorhexidine or whatever you think of, or alcohol, whatever. We're killing the cells of wound healing. We're stimulating the cells of wound healing. And that's huge. But what patients love is the pain relief. Well, that was a gel. We also made the same thing, but we made it in a liquid form. And some of you know about Theragel. Well, we made Oracid. And so we have these that are sold to the dentist, and that's for the whole mouth. I wanted to have something. The gel is real good for localized areas. The rinse is really great for multiple areas. And really, I was thinking cancer patients with the ulcers, the mucositis that they develop. My first wife died of cancer 37 years ago. And she had real bad mucositis. They gave her lidocaine viscous, they gave her this, all it did was sting, nothing worked. One of the things I wanted to do before I died was I want to do something for those patients, but I wasn't smart enough to do it. But when I started working with Bill, I started seeing HSN, I was okay. So we developed that. It's the same stuff, it's just a liquid that you can swish around and all that, and it does the same three things, and it works extremely well. Nothing works like that. So we did that, and I've been spending most of my time up until recently concentrating on that. But then in the meantime, Bill started doing research into nutrition, which leads us to this, So the one I'm really pretty much ready to quit, except the one thing I want to say is, I remember I said that the Aloe worked better. Well, it's because it didn't just have one molecule, and it had everything that's in that clear gel. And new food works because it has a combination. And I've told people I grew up in Kansas and wheat country and farming country. And all my life I've never seen a field with capsules in it. Well, we have capsules, but we don't have capsules with just drugs. Because when you take a food and you extract a molecule and concentrate, it really turns it into a drug, really. So it's everything. So it's got all the nutrients. God's pretty smart. I always tell when I'm lecturing the dentists and then MDs and whatever, I'll say God's pretty smart. In fact, he's really intelligent and he's very innovative. And he knew what he was doing. And food has lots of things, and those nutrients work together to make things work better. Sometimes we need drugs, and we're not anti-allopathic medicine around here. Sometimes we need drugs. I mean, I always tell people, if I'm in a car wreck, don't give me a vitamin, or don't give me a Carol, or don't give me, or don't give me core. Take me to the emergency room. Or if I've got a real bad infection, real bad, I need something strong and all that. But overall, things work so much better, and it's trying to stay healthy when we've taken all the things that in the way that God did it. So our Aloe product, by the way, that we have is like Carol. I tell people it's Aloe, except it's in a Carolina capsule. It's everything that's in the clear gels. So I really love the Aloe product because we've gone all the way back 40 something years to the original Aloe we were seeing such fantastic results about. So anyway, that was that was a long time maybe, but a 30-something year period, that was pretty much of a nutshell. But anyway, Bill was the most brilliant person I've ever known. And we had world-class scientists come in as consultants all the time, and they couldn't hold a candle to him. He was just the most brilliant person I knew. And he created and developed products of the first and only of their kind in the world. That's one of the things I always said, that the nice thing about our products is there's nothing else like them in the world. The bad thing is there's nothing else like them in the world. So I had to go around explaining to dentists and oral surgeons and physicians how food, and show them the physiology, because we had an idea of what was going on, how food gives better pain relief than narcotics, for example. So Bill was just so far ahead of his time. So that was fun. But anyway, we got what I think is the greatest dietary supplements in the world. And that's because Bill was the most brilliant person in the world, just about, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to these guys. They know more about everything else than I do. I told you everything I know.
John, I think you covered most of it.
Well,
and you covered all the important pieces. I knew Bill, I guess, least amount of time compared to when I was up on the stage. I came in on the tail end of everything that Dr. Hall was talking about, the dental products. And John's right. Dr. Bill is one of those people that will forever change your life once you get to know him, once you realize what he can do. And he called Aroga and the products that he developed for it his greatest innovation. And John talked about everything he did with Aloe and side-to-side communication, completely founding an entire branch of science, essentially, there, and everything he did for the dental market. But the thing he was always the most proud of was Aroga. Because it was something that was just so cutting edge. And again, John said it very well. He could see it all. And it's one of those people that, you know, I'd sit in his office and we have meetings, discussions, and you could see him just imagining all these things in front of him and the chemical reactions happening, the physiology occurring at the molecular level. And you're just dumbfounded because you have no clue how this is coming together. But it makes sense. It makes sense scientifically, it makes sense physiologically, it makes sense overall. And to me, the biggest piece he left me was, you know, when you do something like this, make sure that it's the best. Make sure that the quality for what you are creating is always the best. And that to me has been his biggest lesson to me. Not everyone can be an innovator like he was, but we can all be custodians for what he discovered, what he achieved, and that's what we are. We're custodians for this incredible talent, for this incredible product that will forever change how we view health. Because it comes down to that. It's how our cells function at the molecular level. And there's no other way to put this in, you know, how do cells repair themselves? How do cells replace themselves? And how do they end up creating a rejuvenation aspect for us? How do we stay healthy at the cellular level? And it comes down to apoptosis, to autophagy. And I know you'll probably have more stuff to hear from Dr. Faust later today or tomorrow about autophagy and how that kind of feeds into everything. But there's so much stuff that Dr. Bill's able to put together in such a quick period of time, just fully understood it. And that's what he's left for us. An entire legacy to continue working and building. And he's left so much for us to continue to do.
My turn?
Yeah.
All right, so they talked a lot about a lot of stuff, and kind of the way I like to look at it is, you know, almost sounds sad the way they talk about it, like he left this stuff, whatever. I like to look at it like he started it. You know, he started this a long time ago. Dr. Hall was there. He likes to act like he wasn't. He's there the whole time, you know, and he, one way you might want to say it is he handpicked all the people. You know, he could hire and fire whoever he wanted to. You know, like we saw people come and go. You saw people come and go, and there was a reason for it. And it's kind of nice for him to be able to do that. But what he did was, like I said, he started. And people know the specific products is what they're looking at. But the way I like to look at it, and I shared a little bit with some of you guys before, is, you know, how I look at this stuff, that a lot of it is, and because how he raised it. You know, I am a physician. I don't like half of the stuff that they tell us, at least. Dr. Hall has some kind of medical education somewhere in there. I promise he feels the same. Because that's one of the things that I never really got along with, is people that just jump on that bandwagon and go. You got to question that. You have to. And the theme, if I could put one together, is he was always looking for what's missing. And that's what we continue to do. And like Erik said, there's so much stuff already laid out, you know, it's a few lifetimes worth of, you know, stuff to try to get out there. Dr. Hall said everybody else real slow. You know, if you come up with something, if you already thought about it. You know, and Dr. Dan shared the same thing with me a few times in the past. So anyways, that's what we do all the time. We look for what's missing. Dr. Hall spent a long time with Aloe. He told you all sorts of stuff when they were trying to make drugs out of it. Whatever the right word is, therapeutics, adjuvants, all these words they come up with to do stuff with. And Dad would always talk about how amazing that plant was. Amazing. Something that he always talked about too, that a lot of people either didn't hear, aren't listening to, aren't paying attention, whatever you want to call it, is he would say over and over that the technology behind the Aroga products, the Pathways product, is way bigger than Aloe ever was. And then people would say to us stuff like, well, you know, that's true. Well, how come we hadn't heard about it before? Just think about it for a second. How in the world have you heard about something before you heard about it the first time? And some people, they just laugh about that. It sounds crazy, but we got people that work with us. We'll go tell them something that we're about to do. And they'll say, well, why haven't you told me this before? I just told you right now. This was the first time. We just told you. Well, that's what we experience a lot with this other stuff. That's what makes it unique and new, right? The discovery is new. The plants have been around forever, right? Where Erik goes into this other piece that we've always stuck to, very adamant about sticking to. You have to make sure what you're saying is in there is in there. Because someone was asking me earlier about, you'll see aloe all over all sorts of different Latin markets or whatever in the world it is. A lot of them even say like it tastes great.
Mhm.
If it tastes great, it doesn't have aloe in it. If it is inexpensive, it doesn't have aloe in it. Aloe is very expensive,
We have to do it right.
insanely expensive. It tastes terrible, right? So make sure you pay attention to that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can go find something that says aloe on it. It's way cheaper. But there's about 3 places I know of that sell good quality aloe. They're all very expensive. Ours happens to be the least expensive. Right? That's just a fact. Keep going with what we got. Anything that says Pathways on it from our product. It supports that other process we were talking about that Dr. Bill would always say it was way bigger than aloe. For those of you wondering what I'm talking about, easiest way I can put it is aloe helps your cells talk to each other. The Pathways products help your cells act right. Right? In other words, they talk to each other and they ain't acting right, all they can do is fight, right? Like 2 little kids. Right? Well, if they're both acting right or both acting wrong and they can't talk. It's a whole other situation, right? That's, I don't know, you can go yell at somebody that don't speak the same language that you do. You know, you can both be trying to say the same thing, nobody has a clue. Right? So, aloe helps the cell talk. The stuff that says Pathways on it helps everything else inside the cell get acting. Well, what do I mean by that? Kind of Erik alluded to it earlier a little bit. Your cells are designed something very simple. They're designed to work right. When they don't work right, they're designed to fix themselves. And when they can't fix themselves, they're designed to go away and be replaced with a new one. That's the design. Well, it's up to us to put in our bodies what our bodies need to do what they're designed to do. That's where we get Dr. Bill's saying, always looking for what's missing. Right? Well, we mess it up a lot, like Dr. Hall said. They made that product a long time ago. And then they kept trying to make it better and better and better and better and better, thinking like a drug. There must be some active ingredient in here. And then they got rid of most of the stuff that helped everything else with it. And then here we go. I don't know if John said something 40-something years later or whatever he said. Go full circle. Now we're back to where that product started. Right? Well, Dr. Bill likes to learn from his mistakes. So this time he didn't take that route. Everything in there is that plant or root or whatever you want to call it with the water tank. Everything else is good. So that is what we've done. That's what we're continuing to do. And for those of you who want to know, in about 4 weeks, we'll have Dr. Bill's next greatest thing coming out. Or Dr. Bill, I still won't tell you. I've told you I always leave clues. Right? So that's that. Anybody have any questions here they want us to talk about over here? This is your chance. I'm asking about the product.
What's the next product? We're not
What's up?
Shayne, I would like to have you address how the products are evaluated you know, you get them, they're freeze dried from the country, they come through your facility and are evaluated 4 times. I understand.
Eric's expert.
Yeah, so there's little change up there, but everything is brought in directly from the source country. It's freeze dried, so like Shayne said, you take the water out, that's, you're able to maintain everything else there. When it's brought in, it's still evaluated for all those nutritional components and make sure that everything is still there. And when it's mixed all together, now we have a profile for, let's say, what 4 or bone and joint supposed to look like when it's as a human. We have that nutritional readings. Okay, well, this is what we call 4. And then once it's released as well, everything's done. There's another check there, and then the final one also happens before it's all packaged, and then micro takes place as well. And then readings for any other nutritional aspects that we're targeting, make sure that everything is measured correctly for that as well. So
Nitrogen is what it says it's supposed to be.
that's the.
So every single capsule is the same as the other capsule.
Yeah,
When you say everything is the same, how do we rate that as far as you go into a wheat field? 2 feet different, the soil can be different. So the same wheat can have some differences. How do we scientifically say that it's the same, yet recognizing that every plant has some variations?
you're looking for those nutritional profiles. So there's certain things that pop up, let's say, when you're doing an infrared analysis, and you're looking for those markers and say, okay, this is what we're after for chaga mushroom. It's got a specific signature profile that pops up, and that's compared to a library that is compiled with millions of readings. So anyone who's taking a reading actually feeds into this library that then we compare it to. So
And we
there's,
do get them that don't match.
yeah. And so if something doesn't match, or let's say we get a sample of chaga that comes in and it's off by 10%, or something is added on there, you could see these little spikes in the analysis saying, okay, something is off, something is added, or this isn't chaga to begin with. And it has to be rejected because it's deviating from what chaga is supposed to look like from millions and millions and millions of readings.
And there's probably gonna be microscopic differences, like you said. You know, they're not gonna be identical exactly, but we're gonna have, if they're gonna pass,
Yeah.
they're gonna be within the range that we want it to be. To have
And one of the
stuff
bigger-
that's,
One of the bigger problems we run into in the whole industry is it's not even, say it's strawberries. I mean, we've got stuff that is not strawberries.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way on earth it's strawberries. Doesn't even come close to matching the protein.
well, and that's the deal.
And that's what a lot of the problem you run into. It's not that it's less quality of a strawberry a lot of times. It's just, it is not a strawberry.
Well, going back historically, Bill, back 30 years ago, Bill was talking about the #1 seller of aloe products, and I won't say what state he was from, but he sold over $1 billion worth a year. It didn't have any aloe in it, and he bragged it tasted like water. Well, guess what? It tasted like water. And this is what the deal was. It's not regulated, so you didn't even have to, but you could take a 55-gallon barrel of water and put a teaspoon of aloe gel in there, stir it in, and you could, on the label, you could legally say contains aloe. Well, okay, it has a little aloe in it, but I wouldn't say it contains aloe.
Yeah.
It was water. And that's the problem with the dietary supplement industry. You've heard the New York study a few years ago when they just went into the Targets and the GNs and just took name brand products. One actually had 4% of the DNA it's supposed to have. The rest of them just had junk, ground up weeds and all kinds, and some even had some toxic stuff in it. And it made me think of my wife. I know my wife, she was looking for a certain product. I think, I don't remember what it was, but anyway, she finally found, it was like her 7th different brand before she found something. She's like, I can tell the difference. Well, that explains it. I'm not saying all of them out there are junk, but I'm pretty sure the majority of stuff in the shelf is junk. Because guess what? They don't develop assays like we did. The deal is too, is when we, and this one, I didn't know this, Bill taught, when we develop an assay like that, we had to let FDA know we developed an assay. We had to invite FDA come into our company and audit us because we developed this assay. Well, guess what? I don't know any other company that does. People don't want FDA coming in and messing around for some good reason sometimes. But we did because we wanted to guarantee that we were putting in our products what we say we're putting in. So we invited FDA to come in, so they do. And so that's another beautiful thing about our products is they're 100% what we say. They had in it what the label says because we tested and make sure. And we believed though, and Canada did a study like that too. And we believed those reports that we saw from the New York study because like I said, my wife, but also Bill, when he was developing this company, he said he would call up these companies from around the world and say, send me such and such. And most of the time they'd send them, and he tested junk. And he'd call them up and say, that's not what I ordered. He said, well, that's what we send to everybody else. And he said, I don't want that. He said, well, it's going to cost you. Okay. That happened over and over and over again. So I believe it when the New York study says that they didn't find any that have what they're supposed to have, except 4% in one of them. So that's the deal is our stuff isn't cheap, but that's the point. It's not cheap. It's the real thing. And I always tell people you're spending good money on this stuff, but it's good money because you're getting the real thing. And not only that, you're getting 100% instead of a capsule with 5% active ingredient or whatever, 20% and the rest flow material, you're getting 100% product in ours. So you're getting the real thing and you're getting 100% of the real thing. And that's a good buy. You're spending good money when you spend money on our products. And that's something people need to know. I think that means something. I mean, and you know, that's just the way it is. But so I'm proud of our company because Bill developed some really good products, but they're the real thing and they're 100%. And we test it and make sure it is. Well, that's a good question.
I remember when I first learned about, talked to Dr. Faust, and he was telling me about this stuff. He said that when Dr. Bill started, he had ordered 10 products in because the samples all turned out okay. So he ordered the 10 shipments and he ended up sending 9 shipments back. With the response, we're used to people checking the sample. We're not used to people checking the shipment. I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's really valuable. And then they check them the 4 times like you had to be sure that the components are all working. So you would really not say these products are supplements because they're actually the whole plant.
Well, no, they're dietary supplements because they supplement our diets. That's.
I think of supplements as bits and pieces of a plant.
Well, they're well.
Drug.
Yeah.
That's why we're.
That's your nurse thinking right there.
Yeah.
But they're dietary supplements, and that's the other important thing. These things don't replace food. I mean, they're not food replacement. You still need to eat the best food you possibly can. These are designed to supplement that and get some nutrients that we're not getting.
Yeah, one way to look
Basically,
at it too that I think helps out is, to me, there's basically 3 things that I need. Exercise, you gotta eat right, you gotta have your mind right, call it whatever you want. Spirituality, psychological stability, you know, however you choose to phrase that. And whatever one of those is lacking, you have to supplement. Like I was talking to him earlier today about how in my office at home, there's a stationary bike. And when I get on one of these phone calls where people just keep talking for hours on end, I get over there on that bike. If I just sit there and do nothing the whole time, you see all the problems that happen when people just sit there. But that's the way to look at this other stuff. You can eat as best as you can, but you cannot get everything your body needs to do. That's the fact. You just can't for various reasons. Growing conditions, not having good variety, whatever it happens. But that's what a nutritional supplement is.
Mhm.
supplement for diet,
Mhm.
exercise, so. Dr. Dan, you have any questions? You look like you do.
What did you say was the new thing?
I don't know if we really introduced, there's probably quite a few guests who are visiting on Zoom who don't even know all of you guys. I don't know if there's a little bit
You
of
introduced
a
them.
story, kind of what got you, Eric, I know you had a journey, how you got to meet Dr. Bill um, and what you guys do for the company.
What
I
you
know
do
you,
in the-
yeah, you began and now you're in a new position.
Yeah, there's that. So I started with Bill, it'll be 16 years now. I came in as an intern. It was supposed to be a 1-year thing for me. I was gonna gain some experience and learn some stuff in a lab. And it turned into an entire career for me. It's one of those things that the question was posed to me of, do you want to help a few people in this world, or do you want to help a lot of people? And I never put it that way for myself until Dr. Bill asked me that. And it's one of those pieces that for me, like I said, the biggest thing he left for me was how to get some of this stuff done. What needs to be done for developing great products and what goes into it. And so for me, it had a huge impact on how I deal with operations, which is what I deal with the day-to-day, what comes in, what goes out, and make sure that things are exactly how they're supposed to be running. I always say that my job is to bring the vision that Dr. Bill and Shayne have for everyone here to life. What are those elements that need to be done? What needs to happen for these things to become a reality? And same thing with Dr. Hall. I mean, he downplays his role with developing products significantly. And it's one of those pieces as well. He's talked about wanting to have a race since day one I got there. So it's one of those pieces for me is how do we make that a reality?
How many years ago did you start that first year?
16. Yeah.
Are you're what is your?
My title is Chief Operating Officer and President. So my biggest task, of course, is just the day-to-day operations.
John, what do you do?
Well, my title, I always thought my title was kind of general clunky, but because it kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that and everything, and clinical liaison for various things, because I can talk with the clinicians and all that. Bill passed away, and so they said, you're the new chief science officer. So whatever that means, but because
It means
believe
that you're the one that's most conditioned to carry on what Dr. Bill had.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
And believe me, nobody can fill his shoes. So that, but anyway, that's so try to make sure everything does. And to me, one of my main jobs is to answer the phone and answer questions. I got a call this morning, and I get called all the time, and if somehow you do. And so I do have an idea of what's going on, and I can explain. They're saying, what was Bill thinking when such and such? Well, sometimes I actually have an idea what Bill was thinking back then. So the history does help. So, I'm on the periphery sort of, but I got my fingers in a little bit of everything, even regulatory affairs and things like that, which I'm not crazy about doing, but you have to do it. You have to deal with the FDA, and you just have to. So,
Yeah, and I'm Shayne. I'm the CEO. I am a chemist and a physician. And I've worked with Dad off and on for a long time, like even back. Yes, first real way was, I was in college. It's close to 20 years now, I guess, approximately. And yeah, But I've had this role long before Dad was gone, because Dad didn't want anything to do with it. Dad wanted to make stuff, and let me and Eric and John deal with everybody that wants to bother us with stuff. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I've known Shayne, let's see, with a little sport. So, and Sean too, for that. So we were all a lot younger back then. So, but now, you know, I was his coach, basketball coach in YMCA basketball when he was 8. Now, you know, he's been my boss for the last 14 years or whatever. So you have to now. So I've realized too late that you really need to be nice to the little kids. They're gonna grow up someday. I was nice. I was nice.
Often we hear that the scientific process takes a long, long time to go to the fact that you get a product. Dr. Bill is not longer with us. How many projects or scientific insights was he in the process of developing that are still 5, 10, 15, 20 years out in the future? Or are we at the end of his life? I would think that's probably just midway or somewhere. But
That's
how
why
would you
Dr.
expect?
Hall has the job he has, because he spent so much time with him, like he said earlier, sitting there just in conversations. Like if you sat and watched Dad work, you'd think he's playing all the time. You know, he's sitting there talking about whatever, looking at whatever, and that's, you know, you look at what John did for all those years, you're like, what does he do? Just sit there and listen to him talk all the time? Yes, that's what he does. Because this guy right here remembers everything. And he'll go back there and tell you the date something happened, whenever it was, and that's what Dad would use him for a lot.
Mhm.
John, what did that guy say when we were in Canada in '94? The one with the beard? Yeah.
Mhm.
And he just spit it out. Right, thanks. And he just keeps on going. And so you take that and keep it going. So all these projects, and I'm not kidding, I said lifetimes earlier, multiple, I mean it. You know, because what you just said is accurate. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
Like this thing we're messing with right now, we've been dealing with just the packaging aspect of it for 4 months. Yeah. Once we found the place, 2 years prior to that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it takes a lot longer than it should, but it's just, that's the way it works. It just, there's a lot
But there is a lot.
of, lots that's involved in doing it right.
Some are very major, some are minor, but all are very, very, very necessary. Anybody else?
Is there any questions online? I looked, I'll check again. I remember hearing a story, I think when you were in college, the first time you and your dad talked about apoptosis. That's really where we're at now, this journey.
Dad used to call me all the time when I was in medical school primarily, because I was in a different city. And he just, you know, talk to me about whatever he'd been reading about or whatever. Hey, what did you hear about this? What did you hear about that? Y'all heard about this? And there's questions like that. And every time he'd ask, it was no, 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 no. And then one day I was walking back and he called me 50 times that day. So I called him back. And I said, what's up? And he said, yeah. I said, you heard anything about apoptosis? And I said, yeah. Matter of fact, I have. And I stopped right where I was, because that day I'd actually come across it in the textbook. There's one little line, and it stuck out at me because it was in the middle of this whole chapter about necrosis. So it said, oh, this is another way that they don't really know much about. That's the whole line. And so I told him, he goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, thank we're on this thing. He said, I think this is the next big thing. So that's how much time, that's a good example. Great question, Cameron. That's how much time is between major things. So if you want to look at aloe, when would you say that was? Early 80s?
Mhm.
So that was the whole carbohydrate thing. And this would have been mid 2000s. You know, so that's.
When you look at one time a few years ago, I looked at glycoscience and the history of glycoscience. In 1980, they showed a chart, well, I'll do it this way. So it was here at 0. And then in 81, and then it started, and that's when Bill basically started it, really. He's the one who started the glycoscience concept, because like Dr. Rollins said earlier, he didn't believe a thing of it. He was trying, because we were taught that carbohydrates are for energy, period. They don't do anything else. So anyway, Bill, there, I just saw, there's Bill's picture should be right there, right when it started, and then just started, then thousands and thousands, and we're talking about articles, research being done. Thousands and thousands and thousands of articles, every year almost. But Bill started that.
The thing that he always stuck to too with that stuff, John, is he was always trying to help everybody. For whatever reason, people like to wait till they're sick or go find somebody that's sick before they talk to them about this stuff. And that's just a huge disadvantage, I guess is the right way to say it, that people are giving both themselves and the people they're talking to. I get it. That's when you go to the doctor. Most people don't go to the doctor until something's bothering them. They got a sore throat or bone sticking out of their leg or, whatever it happens to be. But that's the whole idea with this stuff. When we talk about your cells, we're talking about everybody's cells. Everybody on the planet's cells need apoptosis. And if you don't have what your body needs to do apoptosis, you can't. Right? And that's where you run into a lot of problems. It's the same with aloe. There's other sources out there that give those sugars. They are very difficult to find, very hard to get.
And they don't produce as much.
They are not readily available either. So it's not like, well, yeah, I get my good carbohydrates from the market down. If you don't have a good source of aloe, you're not getting it. That's just how they do it. Or one of these others. Apoptosis, same thing. If you don't get this stuff that supports apoptosis, you do it right. Are there people out there that get it? Maybe. I don't know of any. Maybe some of these people that live to be well over 100 in some mountain range, Nepal or whatever, but I don't live there. So I don't get to eat what they eat and drink what they drink. So I have to go take myself some capsules.
Yeah. And the idea of Aroga is to help people stay healthy. We're not into treating people. I mean, what I always say, the same nutrients that help us stay healthy can help us get healthy. And so it does. If you're sick, we need these too. It's a great thing to do, but the whole idea is everybody needs this. Everybody you talk to, everybody needs this in our minds, because it's the best, these are the best sources of these nutrients that we know of for optimal health. And that's the idea, is everybody wants to stay. I don't want to recover from cancer. I mean, if I get it, I do, but I don't want to get cancer. Everybody in my family dies of cancer. My folks, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my first wife, her parents, my kids are behind the 8 ball genetically as far as it comes with cancer. I don't want to get cured from cancer. I don't want to get it in the first place. I don't want my kids. Well, I want to give myself the best chance of not getting it. And that means getting the best nutrition I can. And, don't do stupid stuff. Smoking's not smart. I'm sorry. It's not smart to smoke. It's not smart to take all kinds of drugs. It's not smart to do a lot of stuff. I don't want to jump out of an airplane without a parachute, or even with a parachute for that matter. So we need to eliminate silly stuff and live as healthy as we can, all that. So, but this is one way that we can do it. It's a real simple way to help live a healthier lifestyle. And that's what this is for, is to help people stay healthy. It's really sexy to talk about and hear about people being cured of cancer, that they were given weeks. That's fun, and it is fun. But I'd rather not get it in the first place. Just between you and me, I don't want to get it in the first. I don't want that story told about me. Just stay healthy. That's the ideal as far as I'm concerned. And that's what these are for. So the stories help. That gets people's attention, but then when they see that people responded from that, well, then they'll be more likely to take them, because they want to stay healthy too. But that's what these are for. That was the idea, is to help us stay healthy. That's sexy enough for me, believe me.
I know we had a gentleman on the Zoom. How old is Gary? 78?
Yes.
I think it was last year or the year before. He went to lunch with a friend who was many years younger than him. But they hadn't seen each other because of COVID. But the woman was just shocked at how young he looked. He had another story, meeting some people in the grocery store, got invited to the 4th of July. How healthy and young, they couldn't believe his age and that, well, let me tell you mine, thing. And I love it when you're sharing that, because, I hear stories like his, or when people look at me, they don't believe my age, I love that, but so that's the why we should all have.
I have another question. We say that everybody has the apoptosis process happening in their body, or they wouldn't be alive. Yet most of us don't get what we need in life or from our modern diet. If we need 100%, the average person is getting 2%, 10%, 20%, ballpark. How would you, as scientists, say it's important to us, and most of us are only getting this level when we really need this level? Can you give me scientific ballpark figures?
I think that's a difficult question to even ask like that. Because John said, like his example with his family, their genetic predisposition to fill in the blank. Everybody's got something that's better or worse than others, right? And it's more of specific to each person and what you put yourself through. If you smoke all the time, if you live in a big city that's got pollution everywhere, are you exposed to a lot of chemicals, radiation? What is a normal diet? That's even a harder one to answer, right? Like one of my kids eats, you sit down the plate and ask which one's the adult and which one's the kid's plate. You're going to pick one of my kids' plates as the adult plate, and one of the kids' plates is going to be a kid plate. So they're just the way they are is totally different. So where people are, it's a huge range. But where you run into your biggest issues with that is what are your predispositions? What is the environmental factors doing? What are they hitting on you? Because I eat better than most people that I know for sure. I exercise more than most people I know for sure. I pay attention to my mental health. It's a phrase people like to use these days. It's more than most people I know for sure. So if you said, do I need more or less of good nutrition than other people? I might need less. But the irony is I take more, right? Does that mean that I'm getting the right amount I need? No. That's why we're constantly looking for what's missing. You hear a lot of companies out there, they'll tell you they found review. Oh my goodness, we got this Jubba root from the Congo, and it does all this and cures that. And the only place you can get it is our company. And then they make up some crazy story about how their founder was raised by gorillas, and so the gorillas let them in to get it. Blah 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 blah. You hear stuff like that is nonsense, right? So who has what they need? I don't know. I just know that you got to do the best you can to get everything in your body. If I was to pick something and say with confidence, what percentage people have, and all I can, and this is not meant to be smart alecky at all. It's not enough. That's the best answer I can do. What percentages? Well, it's different for everyone. Like my wife over here, hers and my diets are drastically different. Look at us. Our genetic makeup is drastically different. I promise we've been dealt a significantly different genetic profile. Our kids, they have a nice mix of them. Genetics says that they will be better off for it, but that's a whole different thing there. So look at them. They just, the way genetics are, they will be more healthy than a lot of their classmates. Just because. Well, we can get to that further if you like down the road. But do they still need all the apoptosis stuff to keep them as healthy as possible? Absolutely. Very important. Go ahead, John.
Well, it is amazing that people do as well as they do. That's kind of where I thought you were going. The diets that we're eating right now, still people are living long and all that. And it is amazing. To me, it's just God made our bodies wonderfully. And so but the reality is we're not getting the nutrients. What we're talking about is optimal health, trying to get optimal. people are living long and they're doing reasonably well and all that, but we know they could do better and feel better too. You know, I want to live longer, but if I have to live 5 years being miserable, I think, this pass, on that at this stage of the game. But so that's the idea. Yeah, people are, the soils are horrible. The foods, we're not having the nutrients that we used to, and yet we're still living long time. And although everybody seems like almost everybody has something going on. There's something going on. They got something that's hurting, or they're just not doing well, especially as we get a little older and all that. And there's inflammatory stuff going on all the time. And like I said, the chronic diseases they all have inflammation. So what we're saying is, yeah, people are living long and they're doing reasonably well with what they're eating, but they can do better. We know they can. And we're about optimal health, and that's what we're trying to offer.
Dr. John Rollins wants to make a comment.
Good.
Let's see. Speak up, Dr. Rollins. Let me see if we can hear you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very great. I think we've heard some great explanations addressing the last question. And the only thing I wanted to add was that science still has a ways to go before we can quantify how well we're doing. And thank God, if apoptosis is not working at its optimal in the majority of people, and it isn't, there is enough going on to keep us going. But yet we're seeing increases in all kinds of diseases and disease states as we get older. Yes, we're living longer, but we also have to consider the quality of that longevity as well. What Dr. Hall and Dr. Shayne and Erik are saying, I think, is that we know that there are nutrients missing. Science already lets us know that. What we don't know yet, perhaps, is how much we need to improve the quality of life. But even before that we're able to quantify that, we know that what Aroga is offering right now is improving the quality, if not the longevity, of people right now. The scientists are going to figure out the numbers. But again, I'm 80 years old. I don't want to wait until science has all of the answers. I know I need these nutrients now. My life, the quality of my life is better. My overall health is better. So I'm going to continue to consume them. I'll be excited about the science. But right now, I can't afford to wait for the science to catch up with where we are in the environment that we live in. Another little comment I'd like to make, someone raised a question about the quality of soils and environment and how they impact the level of nutrients or the quality of nutrients in various plants. That for a long time, and probably still is, I've been away from the patent office since 2004. But one of the things that we ran into quite often was, back in the old days, it was difficult for inventors to actually identify what was in their products and the quality and the amounts and so forth, because of that variation. Where the plant was grown, where it was cultivated, the environmental conditions, the season of the year. But now, as Erik has pointed out, we have assays, we have tests to make those determinations so that Aroga is able to select, if you will, the raw ingredients that meet Aroga's standards. And so, yes, you're going to get batches of material from various places, and they just will not measure up for whatever reason. Yes, some of it might be unethical, an unethical supplier. This is what I sell everybody else. I thought that's what you wanted. No, I know what should be in the product, as Dr. Bill would say, and we have ways to quantify that. So send us your good stuff. And as we learn more and more in the scientific and community, we will be better able to quantify, to address the last question that was asked. By the way, you guys did a great job. Let the old man sit down a while because he's fidgeting around.
Give him a chair.
Thank you for noticing.
Yes.
Thank you for noticing.
You're doing great, John. But I'm just kidding you, man. Don't pay attention. We both like humor, so we both understand where we're coming from.
All right. Nobody else? Is it a question? No? Okay.
A general question.
Thanks,
You
John,
can
by
sit
the
down,
way.
John,
That
if
was
you
good.
want.
If we look back to the Ace Manna discovery of the functional component of aloe vera, it took 10 to 20 years for that to go from this level to starting to be semi-accepted. Where do you see apoptosis and natural things that we have to offer in that bell curve? Are we still at the first?
So here's the deal with that, and that's a great question, the way you asked it too, because when they started out with that stuff, they went through the classical ways of doing it. They tried to make drugs, tried to make all that stuff. Takes forever. When they finally went off and did direct sales, network marketing, whatever the one you want to call it, that's when that stuff really started taking. So with this, we started that route from the very beginning, trying to speed that up. So where are we on that curve? We are constantly trying to find people to talk more and more about this stuff. So I don't know where we are. I like to think we're on the part that's about to shoot up in a second now. But I don't know. You know, that's only one of those things, you know, from hindsight. You know, it seemed like it's gonna happen quite a few times, but you know, you get a lot of people waiting for stuff and I'm gonna wait on this and wait on that. Waiting is the enemy of, you know, that, trying to get stuff out. Where are we? Don't know. Where do I hope we are? Right at that upswing.
In a month, when they tell us what the new thing is, you heard it here.
All right. We done?
You may be excused.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you, guys.
Thank you. What do you think?